Hey everyone, my name is Jake and today we are going to be looking at some I Don't Work Here Lady stories, so sit back, relax and enjoy. I used to work here, but she never knew. So a bit of a backstory to start us off. This was back in 2005. I had started working at a popular game shop in October of 2005 as holiday help. As you can imagine, the Xbox 360 release in November was insane. Consoles and copies of Halo flying off the shelves. In the ensuing weeks after its release, I saw many return the Xbox 360 console for the dreaded RROD, Red Ring of Death. 9 out of 10, this was caused by people just being extremely stupid with the console. Below is one such story. I should also note that I had a side business of repairing PCs and Xbox consoles, as the store often turned people away for being past the return period, 15 days. So I was making a tidy profit repairing the things for people that didn't want to wait for a warranty return and educating people on how to properly care for the console. And here is why this is an I Don't Work Here Lady story. My final shift had just ended. I was no longer an employee and turned in my lanyard. The manager, who I was on great terms with, asked me to mind the store for 20 minutes as she needed to empty the registers to make a bank deposit. This was an hour before the banks closed, and the morning rush had been very insane. I readily agreed as I was helping a friend. However, her bank run took nearly 50 minutes, which I was expecting. They get rushed near the end of day. The cast. OP is me, MF is manager friend, EK entitled Karen, NK nice kid, Fred the security guard, and Greg the previously fired douchebag employee. Now on with the main story. I'm in the store, totally alone, and decided to reorganize the PlayStation 2 shelves, as customers usually can't tell that it was alphabetized before they started putting things back wherever they felt like. The shelves were along the back wall, which allowed the front entrance to stay in my peripheral vision. In walks what I now know to be a Karen. Cheap gold jewelry that makes a racket I can't even describe. Typical haircut, knockoff shoes, resting witch face, and as much plastic on her body as a Barbie doll. Don't get me wrong, I'm male. The right kind of surgery can get my attention. She looked like her first year did her work. She has a large plastic bag in hand, which she dunks down on the counter hard enough to dent the cheap wood top. I notice she has about a 9-year-old behind her. The following conversation begins. Can I help you? Note, I already turned in my lanyard and I never received store-specific clothing, so I'm wearing a black button-down shirt, black slacks, black belt, and black sneakers. Hey, I'm overweight, I like black, very slimming. Yes, I want you to exchange this console for a new one. It stopped working. I actually don't work. I don't care if it is your department or not. Get over here and help me. Let me take a look and see what I can do. Fine, but I haven't got all day. Do you have the receipt? So at this point, she hands over the receipt, which is badly faded, but I figure out the console was picked up on release day, November 22nd. This was February the 20th. Further, on inspecting the console, I notice a square spot directly under it that is sagged and very shiny. I notice entitled Karen is looking at the price-dropped Elite console bundle at the front, and Nice Kid is standing nearby, so I call him over. Hey kiddo, this your console? Uh-huh. Can you tell me where you normally keep it? In the big room. With the couches and stuff? Uh-huh. Tell me, is there a vent in there where cold and hot air comes out? Yeah, but the game covers it up. Mama said it gets too hot in that room. At this point, I'm facepalming. Entitled Karen decided to use a $400 box of hot electronics to plug a heat vent. No wonder it stopped working and started to melt. Also, in the bag are 3 other games, besides Halo, all scratched up to heck and back. I call over Entitled Karen. I'm sorry, this console is way past our return period, and as the reason it stopped working was due to negligence, the manufacturer likely won't fix it either. But I can… Just when I was about to offer my personal services, I was cut off. What the heck, you lazy POS? Just exchange it for another one. That elite bundle over there costs less than what I paid for this. The price had just dropped, so I'll take that. And replace those games while you're at it. Now, I no longer worked at the store. In hindsight, I should have closed the doors. But with my knowledge of games, I was hoping to at least have some people ready to check out for my manager friend when she returned. However, Entitled Karen really pushed my buttons, and I snapped. Lady, you are obviously very stupid. Her face started getting that lovely color of cherry red. First, our return policy is 15 days. Anything past that is the manufacturer's problem. Second, you used a sensitive piece of electronics to block a heat vent. You are lucky your house didn't burn down. Third, you bought a mature-rated game for an underage child, something we can be fined up to $5,000 for. Fourth, you were just very rude to the only person in this town who could have actually helped you out. Now, I am not inclined to. Get out. Entitled Karen screaming, "You can't talk to me that way! Give me your corporate number. I'm going to report you and get you fired." At this point, I figure what the heck. I've already finished working here, so I write down the corporate number on a piece of printer paper, and then an idea struck me. A few weeks back, we had a new seasonal guy who was just terrible. Rude with customers, knew nothing about what he was selling, and bossed others around. So I wrote his employee ID number on there. I only remember it because he forced everyone to memorize it to pump his subscription stats, even though he never sold a single one. Entitled Karen is screaming at me the whole 2 minutes it takes for me to write all of this down. Fred comes running up to the front like a murder was going on. What the heck is going on here? This employee was extremely rude and tried to assault me. Arrest him. Fred, the security guard, said, "Is this true, OP?" Nope. You know where the camera computer is. Take a look. Last 12 minutes should do it. Camera? Do I really need to take a look at that footage, or will you calm down? She is to be escorted from the building. Here is that information you requested. Have a nice day. I'll have your job for this. And stomps out, practically dragging the poor kid behind her. Fred returns about 7 minutes later. What was that all about, OP? Grab us some coffee and I'll tell you once MF gets back. Oh, grab her one too. So Fred grabs 3 coffees and returns. Then my manager friend walks in about 10 minutes later. Spots the console on the counter, Entitled Karen left it behind, and gives me that, "You have a good story, don't you, look?" I recount the whole thing. Manager friend is getting more horrified by the second, while Fred is practically rolling on the floor with laughter. At this point, I remind manager friend that I am already not an employee, and if it gets her out of hot water, she can say she already fired Greg. What does Greg have to do with this? Well, as you can imagine, the lady was rather peeved. I would think so. And asked me for the corporate number and my name. So I gave her the number and Greg's employee ID number. It took almost a minute for that last bit to sink in. Then my manager friend bust out laughing. Well, Greg was a turd, but that was so wrong. What do you plan to do with the stuff she left? OP, can you fix that? Very likely why. Manager friend to Fred, I don't see anything on the counter. Now the ropes were turned on me. It took me a full minute to realize what she just said, so I quietly bundled up the whole mess and took it home. Turned out the only thing it needed was a new capacitor, which my brother installed, I suck at soldering, and a new fan. Ran great for years, used my CD polisher to fix the games too. All in all, about a $550 severance package. I only remember all of this because she had me recount the tale to any new employees for years. It is burned very well into my memory. And the lesson here? Be kind. The person you are talking to may be your only hope. That's a pretty nice severance package if you ask me. I wonder if the lady ever came back. Probably not. I'm not a doctor. This happened about 10 years ago. I was 18 and doing my public service. Austria has mandatory military service for all 18-year-old males. If you refuse, you have to serve a longer time in a community project or government agency. I was with the local police. So stuff happened and one late evening my mum was rushed to the hospital. Things were confusing and hectic, so I grabbed whatever was on the drying rack and ran over to the clinic. So there I was, looking for the ward my mum was admitted to, wearing my dad's way oversized white shirt. A woman came over to me and asked where Mrs. XY's room is. I'm very sorry, I don't know who that is. I'm her sister. I want you to tell me at once what you were intending to do about her illness. You must be confusing me with someone who works here. I'm sorry. I'm looking for my mother. Nonsense, doctor. You clearly work here. I will not let myself be sent away like yesterday. I have the right to know about my sister. Is it the shirt? That's just a white shirt, not a lab coat. Lady, I want to speak to your superior. Please do that. I'm not working here. At this point, I just walked away quickly, as I had definitely other stuff on my mind than defending my poor choice of clothing that night. Turns out I was a bit too early at the hospital, and my mum wasn't in the system yet, so nobody could tell me anything. A year later, I passed the entrance exam to medical school, and now I'm in my residency. So now, maybe I can help you indeed with your relatives, but not my 18-year-old butt with pimples and braces. Seriously, do I look like a surgeon? My mum made a miraculous recovery, by the way. That would be really weird if she ended up going to the hospital like the year later and OP ended up treating her. Like, that would be very strange. Yes, I work at Target, but no, I don't work at this one. So I work at Target that is kind of close to the one I had to visit yesterday to grab some things for my family dinner. I was in the electronics department debating on whether or not to get a Roku for my brother, when I have a customer come up to me and asks me to help her find a LOL doll. I tell her that I don't work here. She says, "Yes you do, I see you all the time at Target." I tell her that I do work at Target, but I don't work at this Target location. She replies with, "So, you should always be helping Target shoppers whenever you can. It's called maintaining loyalty." I tell her that she is actually dead wrong and that the employee handbook even explicitly says that you are not allowed to help any guests while off the clock. Not to mention, I'm sure the same goes for targets you don't work at. That seemed to set her off, and she ranted about how I was going to be fired once she talked to the store manager. I told her to enjoy her Christmas Eve thinking about me and left. Oh, and I was wearing a blue sweater this whole time. Yeah, to be fair, it's actually illegal to work off the clock in most places, so even if they did want to help, then they couldn't. Somebody's gotta work here. Daughter and I had a dinner date and last-minute shopping Monday night. Stopped in the local branch of a national department store for a couple of items. Ran into an old friend who does work there. Old friend seriously didn't look good, and not just because we're old. Knowing that he has some chronic health issues that can go sideways really fast, I knew that old friend needed to find out what's going on. Look, you sit here and pretend to show me some BS from the catalog. Daughter worked here seasonally, so she can easily direct actual customers to what they need. I'm calling your wife, so she can come take you to the ER, cause you aren't in any shape to be here nor to drive yourself. Old friend had an infection and needed antibiotics. I played Karen and insisted that he show me a dozen pairs of boots from the catalog. Daughter played along and helped 4 to 5 customers, who friend rang up, apologizing to me for the interruption. Daughter and I both knew that friend couldn't sit down on the clock unless he was helping a customer, and that he'd basically have to cut off his arm to be allowed to leave early on December 23rd. In true Karen fashion, I left friend's department without a purchase, but daughter sold about $1,000 worth of menswear while we waited for closing time and the arrival of Mrs. Friend. Oh, I really hope that their friend is doing okay, because that sucks, but that was a really nice thing to do to pretend to be a Karen. Hey everyone, I hope you're all having a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you want to see more videos like it, then click on screen right now. And if you never want to miss out on a video, then hit subscribe, but I will see you all very soon.